Overwatch 2 might still not have a solid release date, but one thing we do know is that a significant shake-up is on the way to the hero shooter sequel. And one hero set for a serious software update is notorious cyber sleuth and happy-go-lucky hacker Sombra. Revealed alongside the upgrades being given to fellow DPS hero Bastion, the hard-hitting hacker is toning down on her disruptive capabilities and swapping them in for the simple pleasure of dealing as much damage as humanly possible. Sombra has enjoyed a decent level of success in Overwatch 1, popular both in casual play and in the highest tier of play in the land, the Overwatch League. Despite her success though, Sombra's always been a little lackluster on the damage side of things for a hero that claims to be a member of the DPS crew, falling more into a utility role than an out-and-out head-on attacker. Though, to be fair, her ability to go invisible and prevent other heroes from using their abilities went a long way towards making up for her relatively paltry firepower. But damage, it seems, is queen in Overwatch 2, so let's take a deep dive into Sombra's software and explore its deadliest update yet. The source code for this Sombra rework is actually pretty simple on the surface. Devs are nerfing her crowd control in favour of some huge buffs to how much she can bring the pain to her enemies. First up, Hack is getting a massive patch in Overwatch 2. Sombra's bread and butter ability has had its cooldown reduced by a frankly ridiculous amount. Seriously, it's almost instantaneous. Well, it's actually 3 seconds, but that's still a whole 5 seconds faster than it reset in Overwatch 1. And the ability now works a whole lot differently than it used to. For a start, it lasts for 8 seconds. And before you start going off about how broken and overpowered that is, just sit down and bear with me. The first part of Hack works just as it did in the OG Overwatch, shutting down enemy abilities for a limited time. The difference is that the ability interrupt now only lasts for 1 second. Pretty significant nerf no matter which way you slice it. But again, hang on, because there's now a second aspect of Sombra's hack that is going to be incredibly useful. And if we're honest with each other, it's probably a little OP. You see, Hack now lets you see your enemies through walls. For the full 8 seconds the ability lasts, revealing them not only to the Sombra who performed the hack, but to their entire team. The kicker is that you obviously have to hit them with the hack in the first place, but that should be a lot easier thanks to the shorter cooldown and the fact you can stay invisible while you do it. You see, it's not just about hitting harder for the cybernetic sneak, it's also about hitting smarter. In Overwatch 1, Sombra's invisibility will deactivate whenever she utilises her hack ability. Now though, you'll just become briefly visible while mixing the two skills together. Long enough for opponents to potentially see you, but hopefully not long enough for them to get the beat on you, making choke points, surprise attacks, and taking cover during teamfights a lot more problematic than it used to be if you're unfortunate enough to fall victim to a Sombra cyber attack. There are a few balances that have been added to keep the Queen of Hacks in check. The detection radius of stealth has been doubled to 4 meters, for example, but an invisible Sombra still looks like a potent threat going into Overwatch 2. Remember when we said Sombra was embracing her damage side? Well, she has a brand new passive ability that boosts her damage on hacked enemies by 50%. That's not a typo, 50. I mean, let's face it, no one would be surprised if this got nerfed into the ground pretty quickly once Overwatch 2 finally gets boots on the ground, but you have to admit, it does sound pretty fun to play. We've already seen the likes of Echo run house with her focusing beam that completely shreds anything below half health, and Sombra looks like taking a leaf out of Echo's deadly playbook. And that's before we even talk about her ultimate. It's still the EMP you know and love, they've just strapped a nuke to it. EMP won't destroy shields anymore, instead the radius of the explosion just deals a small, tiny amount of damage to all enemies caught in the blast, up to a maximum of 40% of their total health. Again, not 14, 40. And it works with their passive, which will be active, because EMP also hits your opponents with the hacked debuff, as if getting smacked for almost half your health wasn't bad enough. Kick off a team fight with Sombra's ultimate in Overwatch 2, and they'll be practically melted and back at respawn before they even know what hit them. Oh, and obviously she still has her translocator, because why wouldn't she, which is staying just as it was in the original game. So just in case an enemy is alive long enough to shoot back, she always has an escape plan ready to get her out of trouble. Honestly, Sombra's rework makes her sound absolutely broken on paper. If you threw these changes onto Sombra in the current Overwatch meta right now, she would completely destroy the balance of the game. And a number of players already think she's way too overpowered before a shot has even been fired in Overwatch 2. But that's kind of missing the point. This rework isn't happening in a vacuum, and just like with Bastion, it's clear that the devs are set on making sure that every hero gets their shot in the limelight when the sequel finally hits our screens, hopefully at some point next year. And most importantly of all, these changes just look like they're going to be incredible fun to play, which is exactly what a stealthy, world-renowned hacker with a teleporter, a machine gun pistol, and a cybernetic graft along her spine should be.